As you can see, it's a dark day outside Seattle, Washington this morning, March 15th. Thanks for joining me. My name is Dawn Spiegelberg of Bodywise Bodywork, as you know already. I'm excited to talk with you today about what you eat creating the emotions you experience. I've been listening to some recordings of Tony Robbins. He says our decisions create our destiny. One of the decisions that we make every day is what to eat and how we're going to fuel our body. I had an experience recently that demonstrated to me how important the ways in which we fuel our body are and the direct effect it has on how we feel. And how we feel affects how we live our lives and how we interact with those around us. You can find Bodywise Bodywork on the internet at www.bodywisebodywork.com, social media at bodywisebody, and if you're local, on the Natural Choice Directory, page 10, and you can find recordings of shows I've done on KKNW, that's 1150kknw.com, under Natural Choice Network. And it's exciting because we have been recording a couple broadcasts recently, and Tuesdays, that was yesterday, was about finances, especially considering we're preparing for tax season right around the corner. So feel free to look that up. I am a guest host on the Natural Choice Directory, and my guest is Lynn Brown, a financial planner, talking about how to prepare for taxes and the mindset and the ideas that we need to keep in at the forefront of our focus while we count down to April 15th tax day. So aside from that, let's move on to today's content. If you need to put off thinking about your taxes, you've got a few days to do that. I encourage you to think differently about tax season so that you don't have to avoid it. You can look forward to it, which this season is one of the first seasons I'm looking forward to submitting taxes to my CPA. So today's content is about creating what you feel and leveraging food to do that. So yesterday, Tuesdays, tend to be difficult days for me in the evening. I get home from the daytime activities. I quickly get dinner started. The kids eat something that's relatively quick but also easy to mess up. And then we take them to their activities, and baseball season just started. So Rowan does baseball while Casper goes to gym. And so when it comes to parenting responsibilities, we are split up in those responsibilities. It's also garbage night, and while I'm not home, I'm not able to cook myself dinner and my husband and prepare the dog's meal. So when we get home from the kids' activities, it's a race to make sure homework is done and packed away in the backpacks. And the garbage is put out, and the kids' teeth are brushed and they're ready for bed, and then my teeth are brushed and ready for bed. And the interesting thing about Tuesdays and their activities is that they're actually ramped up. So they're moving and driving and being very active in their bodies, and that creates an evening where they tend not to do what I ask them to do. They're keyed up, they're energized, they're asking for more snacks because they're hungrier, which puts bedtime later and later, and I get frustrated. For the last several Tuesdays, I've been managing it really, really well. What made yesterday different? Yesterday, I'm just coming off of a big mistake that I made. I spoke last week about chocolate-covered almonds. I made another mistake with dates and bacon. Apparently, I'm addicted to dates and bacon. And dates, as you well know, have quite a bit of sugar. So when you eat 3 covered dates and bacon in the morning and then have another 3 or 4 in the evening, that more than doubles your sugar intake. So I'm coming down from 3 or 4 days of a huge sugar spike in my diet, which I don't ever recommend. So last night I was super dupery grumpy. The interesting thing about being super dupery grumpy was I wasn't grumpy during the day. During the day, I was fine and managing things well, but when the evening came and there were deadlines, as in getting children to their classes and to their practices, and bedtimes I was trying to manage so that kids would wake up this morning, which was very difficult for them. I felt really pressured, and under that extreme pressure, I started feeling super grumpy. And the kinds of things that were happening, for example, my 12-year-old who tends to try to bring humor to situations often. When I'm not in a good mood, I don't perceive it as humor. I perceive it as being disrespectful, as talking back, as being mouthy. And all of this happened. I was emotionally wound up and I wasn't resilient. My emotional capacity was low and I was short-tempered. And really what's incredible is that instead of taking responsibility for it inside, for my insides and for the way in which I was behaving, which was short-tempered and please get this done and no, you can't do that until this is done, which I've been trying to manage and shifting. I've been doing a great job of changing that through my heart coherence work. But last night was different. And it was different because I was coming off of a shift in my diet. So the straw that broke the camel's back last night was the kids were messing around. They were not in bed. They were asking me to do everything. They were on the bed, not in the bed. And I said, come on, guys, you need to get in the bed. And all they did was get out of the bed, but they didn't actively get in the bed. So they expected me to pull the covers back and to get their pillows that they needed. And I just lost my cool and said, you guys need to get yourselves in bed. I need to go to the kitchen and take a break. And I left the room and turned the light off on them. And the response of my 7-year-old was to be super upset and to feel disconnected. And when he feels disconnected, he's afraid because he feels alone. My 12-year-old, when he feels disconnected, he gets grumpy and he feels separated in such a way that it's interpreted as he's not good enough and I don't love him. So I was in the kitchen filling the kettle so I could have a cup of tea and calm down before coming to bed. And I just filled the water filter on the counter. And the kids requested that if I fill the water filter, that I leave the lid off so that they know there's water in the top. Well, the kids were in bed and it was nighttime, so I just put the lid back on. Casper came into the kitchen saying he needed a drink of water. And I was so frustrated. I wasn't in the let me help you mood. I was in the cross my arms and get yourself back to bed so that I can calm myself mood. Which means I did not do what I would normally do, which is get a glass for him and fill it and hand it to him and say, drink a little more than you feel like drinking just so that you rehydrate yourself today. Instead, I stood back in judgment and allowed him to pour his own water, except he didn't know that there was, that I had just refilled the filter, which poured water all over the counter, and there was a huge puddle all over the floor, and he roared in anger. And at that moment I realized my attitude was creating this scenario that was just horrible. Horrible for me, horrible for my children. My 7-year-old was in bed crying. My 12-year-old was in the kitchen roaring. And while I was cleaning up the mess and the water, I did not get my tea. I went back into the bedroom, tucked in my children, and apologized and said, Casper, if I had been in the proper parenting attitude, I would have helped you and the water would not have spilled and you wouldn't have gotten upset. And I looked at Rowan and I said, Rowan, if I had been in the proper parenting perspective and attitude, you wouldn't be feeling afraid right now and disconnected from the family and feeling like you don't belong in the family. So all of that terrible situation as an example to share with you that one, heart coherence is something important for maintaining capacity, personal resilience, and the ability to cope with things that change. Not just things that change in the world around you, but the things that change inside you. Because, like Tony Robbins says, it's our habits that create positive emotions. And if you create a habit of not eating well, which I did over the weekend, I created a pattern of increasing my sugar consumption, which is carbohydrate based. That habit created an outcome that negatively affected my family at a time when they're most vulnerable, which is in the evening before bed. And that affected them so deeply that they were hurt and feeling disconnected and certainly not in coherence with the family and not with themselves. So I encourage you to pay close attention to what you eat, create habits that allow for a positive internal experience within your body so that fuels positive emotions so that you have a positive impact on the world and the people around you. That's today's Wednesday Wisdom. Remember, think head wise, feel heart wise, and move your body wiser today.